Ready?
Ready.
3, 2, 1.
This is The Jungle, an up-close, unvarnished look inside leadership and business strategy. We wade into the real-world leader's face and explore what they do to create a path forward, because that's what business is. Wild, exciting.
It's the jungle.
Welcome back to The Jungle. You're looking kind of tan, I got to say today.
We finally had a beautiful weekend in Michigan. It was amazing time to be outside. I actually got burnt, is that nice? I should have had sunblock on, but it was a great weekend. It's good place to be in the jungle, home with family and plenty of outside time. I see you got a haircut too, Doug. You shaved that right down. Couldn't wait for the barber to open. Good job.
You got to be careful giving the wife the clippers.
Right? Be careful. I will not do it. My hair is going for good.
Yeah, that's lesson number one. Lesson number two is you can always go shorter. That's lesson number two. But it serves me okay. It makes me look a little bit younger, which I like. And then exposes my face to this beautiful sunshine. And I actually got a little bit burned there myself. Burned at the beginning of May in Michigan. How sad is that? It's terrible.
It shows how weak our skin is from a winter in Michigan. But my wife and I moved here knowing that there's no better spot to be than when Michigan summers start. It is somewhere to be. Even in quarantine, kids and I, we got out. We did a lot of rollerblading. It's beautiful here. Unbelievable.
It's pure Michigan.
It's pure Michigan. When they talk about pure Michigan, they talk about springs in Michigan, and it is something. Springs and falls.
Yep.
Spring, summer, fall in Michigan, hard to beat. Just got to live through that winter for a little bit.
That's right. Well, speaking of pure Michigan, we had the great honor of having a real Michigander on our podcast episode that we just had a great time speaking with. So we had Patti Poppe, who is the CEO of Consumers Energy. Amazing guest. She's been the Crain's Detroit Business named her one of the 100 most influential women. She's been an inductee into the Automotive Hall of Fame. She's on the board of Whirlpool, just a fantastic leader in the energy space, doing some really innovative things, and I had a great conversation with her. So, Derek, why don't you share some of the takeaways that you had from that great conversation?
Yeah, I will say it was a great conversation. I mean, she even warned people to pull over if they're listening to the podcast when driving because she had some critical insights to deliver. So I like that little tact. She was fantastic. I got to say that. Couple things that I took away. I'll go really high level here, Doug. Her and her team's dedication to purpose and values, right? What their North Star is, and the values that they just came up with a new 5 that defines them. And they may be delayed to push them out during the quarantine. They said no. They went full force with them. Critical. They do everything by those values, and that all ties to a triple bottom line mentality, which is kind of in their purpose. And all that comes together. So I'm going to wrap all 3 of these up in one. And my last one would be all that comes together is, these are most critical when you're making decisions. And when you get in times of crisis like this, she's making a ton of decisions, whether to furlough, whether to sequester employees at the plants, which they did, which to me is hard to think of or fathom, right? But they're making these decisions and they're turning to their purpose and values in times of decision-making and critical need. And that's what's guiding them. I thought that was amazing, amazing to think about that. So my 3 points were really high at that. Their dedication to their long-term purpose to serve Michigan, to serve the planet, and to serve all of our constituents, dedication to those values, and then triple bottom line mentality was very clear with her. What'd you have, Doug?
So those were phenomenal. The point I'd like to kind of build off that was really around innovation. So we've talked to a lot of leaders around never let a good crisis go to waste. And she had some great insights on how you bring innovations during crisis to market. She had some breaking news that she's sharing on the podcast. That's really exciting with a partnership with Google. But some of the points that I took away around how you make that innovation happen, one is around partnerships. Partnerships are great ways to solve problems, but you need to have the humility and self-confidence to reach out to others to partner. Second one was making sure that the innovation is tied to a clear objective. And for them, it was around reducing peak usage. Final point, which this is the stop the car moment, which
Stop the car, Doug.
Stop the car, pull over as a listener, and make sure you remember this. You don't ask as a leader, is it possible? What you ask is, what needs to be true for this thing to happen? And critical insight, we talk about this a lot in our program around hypothesis driven thinking and what needs to be true. And it's a great way of disciplining thinking to ask that question, because it focuses down on the conditions that need to happen for you to bring something to light. So phenomenal conversation, a great leader, a great supporter of Broncos. So we hope everybody enjoys this conversation with Patti Poppe. The Jungle is produced by the Center for Principled Leadership and Business Strategy in Western Michigan University's Hayworth College of Business. Our center supports the leadership and business strategy major, conducts large-scale consulting projects, and trains professionals in acquiring and operating small businesses. To learn more, visit wmich.edu/leadership center. Patti Poppe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be with you. Love the Broncos.
It's a beautiful thing, the Broncos. Tell us a little bit about your backdrop here. Are you in your home office? Is this the work office? What is this?
This is my home office. I, like the rest of my team, have gone remote to stop the spread. So we're all doing our part in our own special way.
Well, is there a favorite book that you have on? So for all the listeners that'll be tuning in on podcasts, if we're looking at this outstanding bookshelf with all these great books, do you have a favorite book on that shelf?
Well, I have one in particular that I've having special notice is Joy at Work. And it's all about a company who discovered that if you empower your frontline team to make decisions, then better decisions will be made on behalf of customers. And so during this crisis, we're actually very consciously working to activate our culture, and empowerment is a key attribute of that culture that is so important, both in times of crisis, but I think in all times. To run a great company, you have to have everybody aligned and empowered to make great choices.
So you've been through 2 crises here in the last couple of years. You're now, I think you're an expert on navigating crisis. So can you walk us in a little bit to what this experience has been like, and how it's similar to or different from previous crises you've led through?
Well, I would say this one is longer. I'm sure you're referring to our Ray compressor station that happened about a year and a half ago. That was, 72 hours of intense crisis management. When we have ice storms, as the electric company, obviously that can be a crisis, but a long one is 7 days, maybe 5 days. This thing we're in our 6th week, almost our 7th week now, of home reporting and dealing with the uncertainty of it. We've never seen it before. We've never seen anything like this before. And so the uncertainty, I think, of this crisis, in addition to the duration, is pretty difficult. And to manage a crisis remotely from one another. Normally, under a crisis, we have a command center and a war room, and we're all together and we're standing shoulder to shoulder, looking at all the information together, making decisions together. That's been a big difference on this case.
Can you take us behind the scenes? So one thing we want to do with the podcast is really help showcase leaders and how they're going through this, and what actually some of the day-to-day or the emotions have been like through the last kind of 6 weeks. Can you kind of share with us some of the headlines there for you of what it's like behind the scenes?
We're an essential service at Consumers Energy. We deliver electricity and natural gas. And so there wasn't an option or a question about would we continue to stay open. Yes, of course we would. Whereas more important than ever, keeping our hospitals and our grocery stores and our logistics companies powered and warm. And all of the homes where everyone is working remotely, we needed to make sure they had really high reliability during this time. And so I would say the challenge for us is how to demonstrate agility and to work faster and figure out faster how to do what we do without seeing one another every day. I'd say the most extreme example is at our power plants and our compressor stations. We have people assigned there who have now sequestered from behind the fence. They've actually gone to those locations on 2 weeks at a time and not left, because they'd be safer in than out. It's such an act of service. It's so important that we continue to deliver. That's the kind of actions that our team is taking at this time. So that's a big difference. That's a big change for us.
Patty, can you take us into, as a leadership team, your leadership group, a lot of listeners are looking for tips and tricks on how to lead remotely their teams. Can you take us through some of the day-to-day stuff, the week-to-week things that you and your team are doing to make sure you're leading and doing with all your employees effectively?
You know, we were about to kick off a values, I called it my culture tour. I was going to go statewide and visit all our locations. And we had settled in on 5 core values that were really important. And we thought, oh no, you know, we can't do the tour. I can't communicate the way we were going to. And what's been so interesting is the senior management team had done all the hard work of identifying these values, how we wanted to be, who we wanted to be when we showed up to do our work and deliver on our purpose, that we now used those values to lead through this crisis. It served as a really important way of communicating and deciding critical things. So those values are caring, empowered, deliberate, agility, and ownership. Those are our 5 values. And so we have actually anchored our response around those values. And I think our culture has been activated faster than it would have been if they waited for me to show up on location and, you know, have the big rah-rah session. I'm doing weekly videos about one of the values. We're doing weekly Q&A with all of our leaders. They're able to ask questions. I'm getting more access to my team than in my kind of old school way of eye to eye is the only way. Technology has been a big game changer for us in connecting with our team. We have this saying that we're coming together by staying apart. and we actually are. We're coming together by staying apart, and it's really intriguing. We have a nice rich data set. We've been polling our coworkers every week, and thousands of people are responding to the poll, and 90 plus, some weeks 97% satisfaction with how we're handling the crisis. Trust me, we did not have 97% satisfaction on our management style 3 months ago. So it's really amazing how it's working, being remote, but still coming together.
So let's stay there for a second, because that's critical. You know, you talked earlier about long-term and short-term crises. So you've got the short-term one that was 72 hours, this one's 6 week. Some would argue that you're in the middle of a much longer-term crisis with climate change, energy, and going back on your values. How difficult has it become during this pandemic to stick to some of those long-term plans that you've talked about throughout Michigan, about getting to total renewable energy, more natural gas and things like this? So how important have those values been, and what else or how tough has that been during this time to stick to those long-term goals?
You know, at our highest order for the company is our purpose. And we say world-class performance, delivering hometown service, but we measure that with our triple bottom line: serving people, the planet, and prosperity. And I can honestly tell you, having that purpose and that triple bottom line mantra truly ingrained in how we think has been the most important guidepost during this crisis. You know, you've seen companies quickly, out of necessity, out of, you know, liquidity crisis, go to layoffs and pay cuts, and we could have taken those actions as a company. But we said to ourselves, what is a triple bottom line solution? How do we find a different way to serve our people, our coworkers, but also our customers? At the same time, we're delivering our clean energy plan for the planet, that we're still delivering for Michigan's prosperity. Is it actually in Michigan's best interest for us to put more people on unemployment? You know, when we think full circle, we're like, that's not what's best for Michigan right now. What's best for Michigan is for us to keep delivering our essential service, doing it in a new way, so demonstrating agility, demonstrating empowerment amongst our team, demonstrating a level of ownership. Having that triple bottom line caused us, I would suggest, to make different decisions that forced us into longer term thinking than just dealing with the immediate emergency. We could stay focused and anchored in what is truly a triple bottom line solution. We actually asked ourselves that out loud, particularly in the early weeks of this crisis. What does it mean to truly care for our coworkers when they are afraid to go out and do their jobs? What does that mean? How do we still deliver energy for the people of Michigan and keep our coworkers safe? And so it really, I would say, a purpose-driven organization, I would argue, is more resilient to these challenges that we're facing.
So that's really interesting, around this idea of having a governing purpose that gives you a touchstone. Can you walk, you hear a lot of talk about that, but how do you guys actually, you talk about instilling it into a mindset. What does that actually look like on a day-to-day basis? Are you bringing this up at the beginning of meetings? Is this on the front page of a slide deck? Or how do you get people into that mindset?
Yeah, I think that it's most prevalent when we're making a decision. When we are deciding what is the right course of action amongst a variety of options, we say, what's the triple bottom line solution? What's the decision that best represents the triple bottom line? And again, I think this job security question really is a great example. We can care for our coworkers by keeping them working, and that's the best way to serve Michigan's prosperity in the long run. And then certainly on the triple bottom line, here's a great example. We have an energy efficiency program, right? So we help people reduce their energy usage year round for natural gas and electric customers. Typically that involves going in someone's home or going inside their business. And so our team quickly realized during this crisis, we can't go in customers' homes. Either one, they don't want us in their home because they don't know where we've been, no matter what safety precautions we would take. And frankly, my coworkers don't want to go in somebody's home because they don't know where they've been. And so our team quickly thought to themselves, well, we can't abandon our commitment to the planet and to customers' price affordability and to our commitment to the prosperity of Michigan by abandoning this energy efficiency program. We just have to do it differently. So in the name of the triple bottom line, our team quickly reached out to Google, and we are on May 15th launching the biggest Nest thermostat program in the country with Google, 100,000 free Nest E thermostats for our customers to sign up, because guess what? We're all at home using more energy. And what better than a smart thermostat? And we have even smarter back office programs that we've never had before that use digital infrastructure and architecture, artificial intelligence, and machine learning about home building envelope energy usage combined with the Nest thermostat. We can actually minimize the impact to the planet of all the customers being home. But for the customer, not only are you doing your part for the planet, you're actually reducing your bill by using energy in a more efficient, smart way and letting us use our smarts to help you do that. In my mind, that's like the perfect triple bottom line answer under these conditions. We had to come up with a new game plan, and the team did, and it's so exciting. So we're going to be launching, you heard it here first, on the Hayworth Business School podcast. You heard it here.
That's it. Well, that's an incredible story. And, we've been talking to some leaders around the opportunity, never let a good crisis go to waste, and the opportunities for innovation. Was this something that got formulated and rolled out in the last that quickly?
Oh yeah, literally in the last 6 weeks, last 3 weeks. We were watching it first and then realizing what was going to happen. And because we had a relationship with a company called Uplight and Google utilizing smart thermostats, our plan for this year was like 10,000 thermostats. We're doing 100,000. We can do it with Google as and we're the only utility in the nation that Google is partnering with on this. They've never done this kind of scale before with one partner. It's a huge blueprint for them or for a program that can be replicated for others, but we called them and they jumped on it and we brainstormed together and came up with a great plan. So, to your point, never miss the opportunity to leverage a crisis. We just knew that we didn't want to give up on our commitment to the triple bottom line, our commitment to the planet and to helping our customers prosper during a very uncertain and scary time.
Seems like you prove that value of agility right there.
That's what we tell ourselves. We've been using it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. And I just redid all that stuff last year, and I have a Wi-Fi thermostat. So I'm sad I'm going to miss the Nest.
But you can still participate in the program. We'll send you a kit without the thermostat and give you some, get you actually signed up on the data. The data back engine is what a huge change is. It's not just like until now, a smart thermostat is only as smart as you are, right? I mean, you have to program it in a way that you think works. We can actually help you program it so that your comfort level is always the same. You can set a temperature setting that you want, but we'll optimize the utilization of your HVAC equipment to minimize costs to you in the long run. And it minimizes then our need to build more power plants. That's our commitment. If we can do more of these thermostats, we can build less power plants as we retire away from coal. And that's the whole goal.
So what's the leadership lesson there? Because a lot of people can say agility and a lot of people might have an idea of an innovation, but to take the idea and then execute against it rapidly in 6 weeks and bring it to market at a big scale with a partnership, that takes some leadership, that takes a culture. What's the lesson for you on how you enable that so other business could be able to do this?
I think there were a couple key attributes. Number one, your point about partnerships is often undercalled. You don't have to have all the right answers. Like so many times, I think teams under crisis hunker down and get really insulated and say, only we know how to handle this. Whereas it can be perhaps unusual to reach out to others in times of uncertainty. It takes a lot of self-confidence, I think, to ask others, what are you doing? Because it acknowledges that you might not have all the answers. And so I do think the partnerships as a way of thinking about solving problems is an important leadership lesson. But I also think having very clear outcomes in mind. We have objectives for reducing our energy use with a grander, our triple bottom line is as sort of the lighthouse, but the near term, the next target condition to saving the planet is reducing energy use, especially on peak, on a hot summer day. And with everyone working from home, we realized that peak was at risk greater than ever. So by having the long-term outcome and lighthouse in mind, we had a near-term target condition of how much energy savings we wanted to achieve this year. And when our current plan was not going to get us to that end, we quickly had to ask ourselves what I think is a very important question. What would have to be true to still achieve our outcome in this condition? A lot of people ask the wrong question. And this is an important one. For all you podcasters, pull over and write this one down. Too many people ask the question, is it possible? That's the wrong question. Is it possible? Anything is always possible. The right question is what has to be true for us to achieve fill in the blank. When you ask yourself what has to be true, you start to say, well, here's all these ridiculous things that would have to be true. We'd have to have 100,000 thermostats. Well, what would have to be true to have 100,000 thermostats? Well, only Google could do 100,000 thermostats. Well, let's call Google. Well, okay. Next thing you know, bang, you got 100,000 thermostats going up on the walls all across Michigan. Like to ask, if I had stopped at, is it possible to hit our goals? No, it's not. We can't go in people's houses. So there's nothing, like, what are we going to do? We can't go in people's houses. How in the world can we achieve our goals? So you see the power of changing the question to, it doesn't, anything is possible. What has to be true to bring it to fruition is just an absolute game changer question.
So,
Love that.
that's a great one. Obviously
You can start driving if you're now.
Oh,
You
yeah,
can
you
get
can
back
go
on the
back on
road.
the road.
You're back on the road,
right?
Yeah.
I'll give you other heads up on my next moments of brilliance.
That's good.
I envisioned myself pulling over there for a second. So, the last 2 years we've had these crises, short-term and long-term. Is there any mistakes that you've made that you've learned from, that you've got to some insights, like what has to be true? You've got to go beyond it is possible. We want to help leaders in the time of crisis manage better. You talked about, mistake is becoming insular to your organization. You need to reach over partnerships. Is there any failures or mistakes that you can share or are willing to share with other people that will help us all learn about, leading during this very, very uncertain time, to use your terms?
Yeah, I think about just sort of buying into it can't be done. It's easy under these times, and I'll tell you, I've had moments during this last 6 weeks of, is this the right thing to do? Like, is it right for my teams to be sequestered on site or off site? What's better? Is it better for us to continue doing gas main replacements, or should we stop all that work? These have been very difficult questions without a playbook, without a yes, no, right answer. And so I think the mistake would be to be indecisive, to not make a choice. At some point you have to decide. And so if you don't have a purpose or an end game in mind, I guess maybe that's the thing, to either be indecisive, so you don't decide because you're waiting for perfection, you're waiting for the perfect analysis, you're waiting for all of the data, you're waiting for all the information. In a crisis, you can't wait for that. So you have to decide, and that's again where this triple bottom line really helped us, and our values. It wasn't a spreadsheet that helped us decide. It wasn't an equation. We're engineers over at Consumers Energy. We want to be able to do the math to get to the right answer. There's no math that's going to get you to the right answer today. And so I think it would be a miss to not lean into your values and the purpose. And there were moments where I wished for, like, what does flatten the curve mean? Give me a formula. How many per day do I need to have to know what day we should replace a main? We're not going to have the testing. The testing isn't going to be here. We would be sitting on the sidelines right now, not doing work, if I was waiting for perfect information. So we had to decide with imperfect information, and having a purpose and values to lean into at that time really did help us. I would say, as we called, keep the wheels on the bus going round and round. That's what we kept saying to each other. Let's just keep the wheels on the bus. We got to keep moving because we got to deliver electricity and natural gas. We don't get a day off here.
So we saw, we were prepping for this interview, some of the great philanthropy that you've done and Consumers has done in the last few weeks to support Michiganders through this time. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. Before you go, there's some great videos of some of this coming out in commercials for listeners. There's been some great Consumers commercials out. I think even that some of your employees leaving the sequester too, right? Getting some, I don't know what you call that, firemen and police and sirens and cheers as they came out of that energy. So some great stuff. So tell us about some of that, the amazing stuff that Consumers has been helping small businesses.
Yeah, happy to do it. We're so thankful for all of these first responders, of course, all of our healthcare workers, but all of our fire departments and police departments, the grocery store workers, the pharmacists, they're all working right now. And so it was very sweet for our team to come from their 2 weeks sequestered. I mean, literally, they go behind the fence, they stay in campers on site or at a designated hotel, you know, a mile from the plant, and they are sequestered from their families and their friends. They only see each other. They test before they go in the facility so they know they're all COVID free so they can work safely. But the dedication that they showed, we don't ever expect to be recognized for that. It's sort of, nobody needs to know what it takes to make and deliver electricity and natural gas, but our police and fire departments know because we're so partnered with them on so many things. And it was very sweet as they lined the road, and our guys were all coming out of the plant after their 2 weeks of sequestration, and some family and friends hung signs on the fence, you know, thanking the workers, and that was very sweet. So that was very, you know, uplifting. It's my gratitude for those coworkers of mine is completely off the charts. Like I don't even know how to thank them enough for their dedication and service. So it was that kind of recognition means a lot from our first responders across the state. I'll say the other thing though, one of the things that has me worried right now is the health and well-being of our small businesses. My husband and I did a grant in Jackson early on, really a week into the crisis for our small businesses in Jackson. And so we really got to see, my husband in particular, all of the applications that small businesses were filing, requesting financial support, and how many of them were 30 days away from going out of business. And because of the health concerns and the need to stay home and stay safe, their businesses are without a doubt in jeopardy. And we totally support the stay home, stay safe decision-making. I don't second guess that at all. But there's a real economic toll on these small businesses. And so we at Consumers realized that being the light in the dark in these times might actually be different than just being a light pole. But rather it's providing information and shepherding our business customers through the available support that exists. Because if you're a small business owner, you own a gift shop in Brooklyn, Michigan, you don't know about all of the financial decisions that are being made in Washington, D.C. or Lansing, but we do. At Consumers, actually, we know all about that. And so we pivoted all of our business customer account managers and our customer call center to shepherding business customers through this crisis. We had webinars with the Small Business Association teaching our contact center agents who normally talk about energy and energy bills, to teach them about the PPP, about the CARES Act, the federal funding available, MEDCs, statewide funding available, so that our business customers could remain our business customers when this crisis is over. And so again, thinking triple bottom line, our best way to serve the prosperity of our business customers is not just keep their lights on. They actually don't need their lights right now. What they need is their liquidity so that when the crisis is over, when they can open their doors again, they're still in business and can afford to open their doors again. And so I'm really, really proud of the agility the team showed in pivoting the whole purpose of that call center for the sake of our business customers. And I'm concerned about that for our state. It's a big issue.
That's incredible what you guys have done, and again doing it rapidly. Are you supporting any small businesses with some takeout in the last few weeks? Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Oh yes, well of course Jet's Pizza got a big order last night. Okay. But there's definitely West Texas Barbecue is a favorite. Grand River Brewery. I'm starting to. You can tell there's a meat and potatoes family at the Poppy House. But there's several restaurants. The Napoleon Cafe in Napoleon, Michigan, does a great beef dip sandwich. I'm unfortunately putting on that quarantine 15. It's definitely happening.
So someone said to me it was the COVID-19, but you know.
Oh, that is what it is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. I'm going to steal that. That's good.
That is fun. That's the first time I've heard that too.
Mhm.
Do you have one last question, Derek, before we head to rapid fire? You want to head to rapid fire?
Just go to rapid fire. That was a great bit so far. Let's not ruin it with another question. Do some rapid fire and then some positive notes here. And
excellent. So we're gonna do a little rapid fire questions here. I got 5 or 6 of them. 1 word, 2 word answers. What we're looking for. You ready to go?
All right. You got it. Let's do it.
All right. I've tweaked these, Derek. I've tweaked these this time.
oh, I'm scared now.
Slight modification. All right, here we go. Courage or compassion?
Compassion.
Speed or accuracy?
Oh, speed.
Okay. Great ideas or great execution?
Well, that's so unfair. But execution, you got to deliver. You can have a great, yeah.
Okay. 1 word to describe your leadership style?
Fun.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
And if you had a spirit animal that really embodied and illustrated your leadership, what would be your spirit animal?
I should have a pat answer for this.
A pet
Maybe,
answer? Was that a pun? Was that a pun?
Yeah. Maybe a beaver.
A beaver. Okay. And any reason for that animal that pops to mind?
Well, just busy, keeping going and building big, important dams that channel energy.
Perfect.
I'll have to work on that one.
That was good.
That's perfect. That's very accurate, actually. That makes sense. Good fit.
Excellent. Well, Patti Poppe, thank you so much for joining us. Some great lessons here. I learned a lot. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Derek. Great to be with you. Go Broncos.